Hi, my name is Shlomi Ron. I'm the CEO of the Visual Storytelling Institute. We are a consulting practice based here in sunny Miami, Florida. And welcome to another episode of the Visual Storytelling Today podcast. Today, if you're following my recent podcast episode, I've been devoting a lot of time to the metaverse and immersive storytelling. So today we're going to talk about another aspect that is getting a lot of traction, which is volumetric storytelling. What is it? What are the applications? What brands can actually do with it to bring more kind of emotional empathy with their audiences? So to help me with this exciting topic, I have the great pleasure to speak with Elizabeth Barron. And after an impressive 30-year career at Ford, leading various immersive reality programs, she's now actually continuing her immersive journey and serving as the enterprise solution executive at Unity. And as you all know, Unity is the world leading real-time 3D development platform. So with that, welcome to the show, Elizabeth.
Oh, thank you so much. It's great to be here, Shlomi.
Awesome. So I kind of alluded a little bit in my intro about your long career at Ford,
True.
It's kind of amazing. So why don't you kind of share with us your journey, how you got into immersive realities and storytelling using the latest technologies?
Yeah, sure. So I started out my career actually as a computer graphics programmer at Ford Motor Company. So I worked at Ford for over 30 years, and I never actually worked on a vehicle. I produced technology for vehicle development. I was specifically geared towards computer graphics and visualization. I worked in the area of how to take multiple parts of a vehicle and bring it together so that you could visualize a complete vehicle, which was quite a feat back in the day, if you can imagine, 25 years ago trying to do that. It was various stages of completeness until it was done. And so my journey basically was that I thought using immersive environments provided a new and different method of communication that can't be experienced on like a flat screen. And I really believed in the paradigm of immersive volumetric storytelling pretty much before its time. So I started doing immersive VR in 1999. That was our first deployed version. It had 60,000 polygons in the world, and it ran like super slow, and it was, not really ready for prime time. But it was it taught us a lot. It taught us what to do and what not to do, which is just as important. And from there, we just kept iterating on the technology. But it really took off once we were able to do real-time ray tracing in VR and get very high levels of quality and get a lot of data and content to make evaluations across teams and functions.
I see. And that's kind of paved your path towards more immersive storytelling in developing models for Ford as part of the prototyping process, I'm guessing.
Exactly. And so to do the prototyping, that's a very loose term because it can mean a physical model. Often it means a combination of the physical model with that is scenario based. So that's where the storytelling comes in.
Right.
A lot of times I know that a lot of your listeners are really geared toward the marketing aspect and the like how to take the brand and represent it properly. There was a definite major initiative to represent final customers, represent marketing early on in product development. And I see that now at Unity as well, like with lots of clients that we work with, there is a definite need to understand earlier, make changes that are market driven, and then have perhaps more data when you're making those decisions, and then be more agile as you're making them.
I see. Yeah, so it's fascinating. It seems like you kind of start from the early days of probably the AutoCAD technologies to kind of visualize 3D environments, and then, you know, you kind of moved along as the technology matures with more interesting, more kind of complicated challenges. That's awesome. So before we dive deeper into exactly what you're doing, I'd like to kind of zoom out a little bit. And that's something I do with all my guests. This is kind of a philosophical question. You know, with your journey is, how would you define visual storytelling from your standpoint?
I think visual storytelling is experiential. So I would say that it's experiencing a scenario in context. So I think that's the simplest way I could define it. So if I was going to be more long-winded about it, I'd say that visual storytelling is the ability to understand, experience, and then have some type of emotive response to some type of journey that you want to take somebody on. And the way to represent that has never been better in the industry. So this is an exciting time to be a visual storyteller.
Absolutely, definitely. Cool, very cool. So now that we got your perspective about the field in general, let's zero in on volumetric storytelling. For people who have no clue what it is, we're going to hear it for the first time here maybe. How would you define it?
So volumetric storytelling is adding that dimension of you into the story. It's very personal because now you are an actor in the story. So you can be told a story that is presented to you, but a volumetric storytelling lets you navigate through the world and use your physical presence as part of the story or part of the discovery. So sometimes telling a story is about like a fun experience or you know, somewhere you're going. Sometimes telling a story is about the product in a phase of development, and it's the story of the engineering integrity of, you know, the product. So the volumetric storytelling lets you be involved. So like in the work that I did at Ford, if you can be immersed inside of an environment that you have a one-to-one relationship between you and the vehicle, and then you can walk around the volume that is represented by the virtual vehicle at scale, then the presence that you feel and the connection you feel to the data, even if it's engineering data, is much stronger, and it's much more relatable to you, even as a scientist or engineer. And then the beauty of doing that kind of volumetric storytelling is you're also representing the art as well as the science. So now you can say, this is a beautiful, well-crafted vehicle. Here's what it looks like if we put the structural stresses on the body panels. And then you can flip back and say, this is what it looks like in various trim levels. So there's an immense amount of information, immense amount of stories that can be told. And it's really about how a product is developed for the consumer in the end and how it would be marketed.
Got it. And just to kind of clarify it even further from the technology standpoint for creating volumetric storytelling, in my mind, you know, when I think about it, when you create 3D content, you can pretty much start from the lowest level as a 360 video camera, right? Which basically put you in a bubble and there's not much you could do. You just can look 360 degrees and that's what you see. And you kind of trap there. The next level is probably a VR experience where you can design different spaces and you can move around and the scenery will change. How volumetric storytelling, what technology do you use to generate something different?
So the importance of volumetric storytelling, like what's different, I guess, is the technology can vary. So like using, I actually happen to, I mean, I'm such a geek. I have a 360 camera sitting right next to me. Just using it earlier, but that it's not ideal. And that type of volumetric storytelling would really be from one point of view, and it's not something you could interact with. But my preferred methods vary depending on what is needed to get the right story told. I'll put it that way. So immersive VR, I'm a huge fan. I think having the ability to navigate through the world, like I just described, is really important for volumetric storytelling, because we are, inhabitants of our world, and we understand how we relate to things at scale. So when we're talking about products and marketing and engineering, having that relationship in a VR environment is great. Also, having that relationship in an AR or a mixed environment can also be great, and it can be more beneficial or less, just depending on what
on the purpose.
And the purpose. So an example would be, if I wanted to compare an option, like I want to make a change to my product. So I look at it as a prototype, and then through augmentation, look at the change. So now I still have a scale one-to-one representation, and then I can see the change. So I can go A, B, and then I can see it in the proper light. Another way to tell a story that's volumetric, and this may seem like it's not, but is windowing into the world in using like an iPad or even a mobile device.
Like AR, basically?
It's like like AR and that type of AR. There's a lot of work you can do for quality inspections and things like that, where it's still volumetric, it's still 3D. It's presented to you on a tablet, so that's 2D in most cases. But that's okay, because it is really about what is the right tool for the job. Sometimes getting immersed in VR and looking at a quality issue on a vehicle it's not a good thing. That's actually too much tech for the answers that you need. So it really does depend. And so, and even in marketing, right? Sometimes you want to tell that story, and you want to tell it in a way that's simple and engaging for the people that you're trying to reach, and not like, here, put this thing on your head and, create a volume, and, that's too much tech for what the message is that you're trying to impart, or the story that you're trying to tell.
Right. So just to kind of summarize from the difference between like standard VR to volumetric, you mentioned earlier, it's really like the point of view of the storyteller, basically you providing a very single view that you decide. And unlike VR, where there are multiple views, I mean, you are playing an avatar and you can go whatever you want. But with volumetric, you already set the storytelling perspective for people to follow, right?
You've set the story for people to follow, but then you can let them choose, like branch their narrative.
I see.
So they can an effective story told in the volumetric space would allow people to go to wherever they want, and I mean within reason.
Sure.
and maybe without reason, right? Because if it's in VR, you can do, you can break the laws of physics. Just you have lots of creative freedom there. If you're not, you have to be careful not to make people sick. There's that whole thing. But I mean, you can let them choose their path, and get very meaningful, valuable data. And by doing that, you can really understand the customer and understand why they did things. So an example of that would be, there's a lot of work done on the user experience aspect of product. So how does a customer relate to the product? And an engineer will design something in a human machine interface, would have a certain configuration, and it will be decided by the product teams that this is the ideal way that people are going to interact with a product. And then in the virtual world, we can say, here's a scenario, can you use my product? And then you find out that they choose, instead of A, B, and C, they choose
something
B, A, and C. And then you're like, why are they doing that? But that's very important data to move forward and to understand why customers do what they do and what types of thought processes that they go through while they're interacting with the product that you want them to enjoy.
Got it. No, that makes a perfect sense. And thank you for kind of clarifying, the difference between the other disciplines. And can you talk a little bit about the entry points from the end user perspective to volumetric storytelling? How do they actually consume the content? Is it VR headset, AR glasses, desktop computers?
All of the above. The entry point for consumers, I think, in general, needs to be very straightforward. And like I just described for other types of volumetric storytelling, it can run the gamut from mobile devices through fully immersive VR scenarios. So I think that the technique that's used to do volumetric storytelling will really depend on the tech savviness of the clients that you're trying to reach. So I think there's a fair amount of gamers that are that love their VR experiences, and those type of gamers can be it's just conducive for them to say, okay, I want to go into this immersive space, and I want to, and there's opportunities there for marketing to say, like, here, try this new fun thing, and then you can get, good feedback and then get your product out there that way. I think the normal way is more tablet and mobile based for most clients.
Got it.
Yeah.
And that brings us to, if you could share, what you're working on at Unity, with the freedom that you have, just to give color to, everything you just described, because, everybody is following the great work from Unity, obviously now with the metaverse that comes to our lives in the past couple of months. So
exactly,
people are kind of curious.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm very excited to work in the digital twin space. So we're thinking about the fourth industrial revolution and Web3 and how the metaverse will enable these technologies to be realized in enterprise. So I work in the enterprise space. So I'm working with major automotives, aerospace, different manufacturers, and looking at how the digital twin platform can be applied throughout their company so that they can have a holistic view of their product at any time. So I keep saying, like, at Unity, it just makes me happy. It's Unity is really a unifier, and it unifies a bunch of data sets and brings data in context for a common understanding of product health at any time.
And so this is like the promise of the interoperability, right?
Yes, Exactly. Yeah. So there's so much, the promise of interoperability, and then the promise of smart decisions that can be made based on a multitude of data sets that don't normally work well together. So an example is taking computational fluid dynamics data of like, the airflow, and then marrying that with a product that looks like it's sitting at your home. And so you can change the time of day, you can put the airflow on, you can look at the stress, you can see if it's like, let's say it's a vehicle, you can see it through its stages of manufacture. You can apply the manufacturing process to the design. Like, I mean, it's just the possibilities are very great and very impactful.
Right. And one thing you mentioned, I'm curious about, what is digital twin technology?
So digital twin is a twin of the physical world, but it's also a twin of the process that goes along with it. And that's the key. So if you can take the product at any point in its development and represent it digitally, that's one aspect. But then also taking the process and the things that you do to develop that product, and then represent that data in the digital world. So now at any stage of development, you can say, okay, I have this data that is geometric, but I also have the data that represents the attributes of what that product is. And then I also have the data that represents what we're doing at that point in the process to create that product. So it's a combination. It's not just geometry. It's geometry and intelligent information that comes together to replicate basically what all of the steps that would be done to make a product in the end.
So it sounds like, in my mind, sort of as part of the product development process, it's really playing on two spaces. One is the virtual, one is the physical, right? And you have different aspects of the product generating data sources, both from the physical work that employees are doing and some from the simulation that are living on the virtual through the volumetric storytelling. And each sphere is actually fitting into the other as part of improving the product towards the finish line.
Exactly. Because it's like, when you think about all of the different things that are done to make a product, what can be understood where relevant systems relate one to another.
I see.
So there are, every company has vertical functions that are, they're doing design, and they're doing different types of engineering and ergonomics and manufacturing. But how do those, every one of those functions adds a level of completeness to a company's digital twin.
Right.
But putting them together provides the holistic view of what that is really like. And so that's the real power.
That's amazing. Well, now you got me super curious to see some visual examples that you promised to share with us.
Okay. Yeah. So here, I will share, let's see. Let me see how get this screen share. So I think it's this one. Okay. So I'm going to go full screen so you can see it nicely. So this is basically, these are the functions. So this is really what, can you see me? Is that kind of?
Yeah, no, it's perfect.
This down. Okay. It's all right. Good. So this is basically what I mean by all of the different functions. So all of these things are happening, and there's marketing, there's configuration of different options for product. But if we can get to the point with the digital twin where all of these verticals, where normally they don't really like talk to each other. If
Oh,
we
I
can get
see.
them to be represented in one holistic area, and that's what I mean by unity being a unifier. So taking all
Yeah.
of these functions and representing all of these data in context and in a holistic manner, that is incredibly powerful. And then if I'm going to go down to, because what it would look like is, okay, so hopefully you can see this. So this is
Yep.
that,
Yep.
yep. So what this is thinking about those vertical functions and then representing them, and you can see how they all relate to each other. So now when you're doing assembly ergonomics and you're thinking about the human and making sure that the workers are safe and that they're not stressing their body like too much when they're doing the process of assembly. And then you can see how that relates to serviceability and design verification, and all of these systems kind of relate one to another. That's really, really powerful in the way that the companies can use a twin to understand a beautiful design and how to make it, and then how to sell it.
So for example, it looks like the digital twin technology is in essence a unified drawing board that, the actual sketch is constantly evolving throughout the stages. And if I'm marketing and I'm accessing this drawing board, I'm going to hit marketing aspect and see, the value benefits from a marketing perspective versus people from customer clinics or design. They're going to have their own respective aspects or data point to look at.
Exactly. And so you can see how, like, if a design is created and let's say it goes out to a customer clinic and the customer provides feedback that is maybe not consistent with the direction that the design was going. With a holistic twin, that data can be received during the clinic, and things can happen to either change the design or stay the course or whatever, but intelligent decisions can be made because now that data, it doesn't go back and get processed, and then they have to figure out how that data relates back to the design and which level of data did they use, and there's all these breaking points when these arrows aren't connected one to another. And so now this whole process, and even serviceability, like we can do, you could do serviceability tests and understand virtually and then feed that back into engineering, and like just this whole interconnectedness is what's so beautiful about a digital twin.
That's fantastic. And I wonder, since you're in the enterprise, do you have example of clients from a variety of sectors like, automotive, education, training, manufacturing?
Yep, indeed. So let's see, let me share. So for manufacturing, this is a interesting one. Let's see here, just 1 second. It's hard because I'm remembering I have to make sure to screen share and
no worries.
And then okay, so let's see, I'm gonna go to here. Okay, so this example, let me see, go full screen. Sorry, just a sec. It's hard on my little teeny laptop here. All right, here we go. Yeah. All right. So this example is basically doing some volumetric storytelling using the physical world and the virtual world together. Oh. And this, so on the left, you see what he is seeing while he's immersed. But what's so interesting is he's actually modifying, like turning a knob, and the physical world, and it's updating real time for him in the virtual world. And then he's placing it in different locations, and you can see it move from the top and it went to the bottom because he changed where the receptacle is. And inside, that's a 3D printed part. So it can take any shape, any form, within reason. I guess not any. There's like, size constraints. But basically what he could do is allow feedback that is proper, and because he's registered properly, he's in an old vehicle that represents the vehicle that's under development, but now microcontrollers can be integrated with 3D printed parts, and then in the immersive space you can tell the story of the product's development. So yeah, doing that type of work is like insanely productive. And then the same thing goes for different types of like energy industries, or if you want to look at cities, you can use the technology to like understand like traffic flow and patterns. And I think, let's see, this is just an image, but it's just like really about the thought about having probability spaces. So each one of these vehicles is a full vehicle model. It can be replicated multiple times. You can build this city. It's like Lego building blocks. You can change the time of day. You can change the weather conditions. You can understand these traffic patterns, and then you really get at the essence for the customer's experience in an urban setting, and then you can change it to a country drive, and so do world building for volumetric storytelling. And then these worlds can be experienced either from the first person perspective, you're in that vehicle driving, or from the third person perspective, where you're doing urban planning and understanding, like, let's put 2,000 vehicles in this same scenario and then see what happens. So you can see that there's, with twinning the environments and twinning the vehicles and allowing a multitude of personas to be in these environments, it really opens up the ability to not only create like an in-cabin good experience for, in this case, for a vehicle, but it also allows the proper use, considering other people, which you have to consider, of course, in the real world when you're cruising around.
This is fascinating. It's really pretty much mind-boggling to see the different use cases, endless use cases, as you said, from a single perspective, customer testing a car, or is it the urban planner that needs to get a simulation to get an idea of different time of day and density of traffic. And this is really pretty much gives you like an open canvas for creating a variety of volumetric stories that way.
Exactly.
And it's kind of interesting also so far you talked about use cases that are all focused in the planning process, where you're helping what I call internal audiences, the employees, basically generate better products. Do you also work with external audiences once the product is out and people, clients looking for new data points, or maybe you get pulled into helping the marketing team and maybe developing the volumetric storytelling as part of their campaigns?
Sort of. I really do focus on the industry space and the engineering space. But because, as we've talked about, these systems are all connected, especially in my work at Ford, I've worked quite a lot with marketing teams, because to understand the customer is to understand how to produce a amazing product. And so they really do go hand in hand. And so at Unity, as well, I get involved in the marketing aspects and the immersive storytelling aspects, in the way that the vehicles, the airplanes, trains, helicopters can be, we can do scenario-based product development, and then create effective use cases so that the product is well understood. And that data does propagate to the end customer once the product is ready for release. So like if you just think about helicopters, there's or airplanes, they're very specific. So orders come in and it's not like, here's my garden variety helicopter, you know, buy this or not. It's here is a line to choose from, and it's custom made and painted and, you know, all of that.
Right.
And so then now there's a lot going on in the field of autonomous vehicles. And that includes helicopters, and you know, there's already fly-by-wire for planes, and so and then you know, delivery options through
drones,
UAVs, commonly called drones. But those types of marketing, like or how do I put this? That type of marketing is up and coming, and many companies are interested in how do I automate and bring product to people quickly and effectively, safely, and like safely so that the product arrives undamaged and safe for the, you know, client that's receiving it, and privately, so you're not violating any you know, personal privacy through image technology and things like that. So there's a lot going on in that space as well that I'm involved in. But you know, most of my focus is around the, you know, the enterprise design and engineering.
Right. And from working with the enterprise clients, enterprise clients, what are the typical business goals clients are after typically?
So if like the quality, cost, and speed. So like they're really looking at how do I make efficient, like gain efficiencies, how do I increase the throughput and amp up my game, because now quality is a point of entry. You can't produce a lackluster product. It's just, I mean, in the past, I think with the technology and how complicated things were without the benefit of a lot of compute, there were error states in almost every product, and people, you know, consumers kind of lived with some level of goodness. But now that's not the case. So like amazing quality is just a entry into the marketplace for most enterprise clients. So it's really about how do we allow them to use technology to predict not only when a failure has occurred, but when a failure might occur. And I think that also could be applied to marketing. How can you predict? Yes, exactly. How do you predict before customers decide that they don't need your product anymore? How can you predict that that might be the trend? And then how can you use some type of machine learning to figure out, okay, if I modified my product in this way, it would provide a new bank of customers that I could, sell to, basically.
I see. Yeah, so it sounds like, the obvious, business goals are quality control, of course, and really testing and making sure that the product can face a variety of scenarios that probably feed later to the marketing folks as the kind of the car is hitting the road and coming into the hands of customers. And then it's interesting to see if everything that you kind of predicted in the digital twin technology is actually happening in real life. And so there's always this kind of a loop of feedback.
Exactly. And now there is an effort to bring clients into the world of allowing them to choose what product they want. So in vehicles, especially, so like in like helicopters, airplanes, and now in automotive with autonomous vehicles, the manufacturing process and the customizability is seen as a differentiator. So the ability, so robotics and AI and machine learning have opened up new avenues for production that allow customers and more choices. So if you think about if you ever bought a vehicle from
Tesla, for example,
you get this or that, and then you could choose package A, B, or C for your new Tesla. But one of the new approaches that is coming out based on using machine learning and having robotics that can create smart factories is almost infinite customizability. So you're not limited to these certain packages, and things are more modular, and robots are like zipping around, bringing the right things to the right vehicles as they're being, created. And then the customers are actually part of that process, and they can check on the status of their vehicle and be more engaged and have a more of a a concierge kind of approach where
design pride feel that they actually create something unique to them.
Exactly. And it is unique to them. And then maybe they can go visit the factory and check things out. And so there's a different model that is being tried out, and that's also very exciting because I think it holds an immense amount of promise, and I think it could be the way of the future for the way all kinds of vehicles, planes, trains, and automobiles are sold to clients worldwide.
Right. And through your time working with enterprise clients on a variety of volumetric storytelling challenges, what seems to be the most popular misconception from the client side about volumetric storytelling?
I think the most popular or the common misconception is that you have to be fully immersed in a virtual world in order to be participating in volumetric storytelling.
Oh, I see.
And I think it's perhaps the misconception would be that it's really complicated to do that, and it can be complicated, and sometimes it should be shouldn't be complicated. Sometimes it is complicated because of the level of detail and maybe the compute you need and all that good stuff, but it doesn't necessarily have to be incredibly complicated. Like even that example I showed with the gentleman in the vehicle, like that chopped up old car, like that is not pretty. Like in the physical world, it's not pretty. Yeah. But in the virtual world, it's gorgeous and it's functional, and so things don't have to be just right in order to do volumetric storytelling. And the combination of the virtual and the physical worlds, I think, is something that isn't used as much as it could be, especially in the
because they're
virtual
complementing
reality
each other.
space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're complementing each other in this case. So you get
Exactly.
the touch from the physical, and the visual is actually coming from the virtual. So,
Right.
yeah. So now for, last question is really, for any brands that are looking to get into volumetric storytelling, what would you say are your top 3 tips?
So I think the top 3 tips for getting into volumetric storytelling, one would be to have a solid reason and solid story to engage somebody with. And then I would also, another tip would be to know what the difference is. So I think, and by what I mean by that is that volumetric storytelling provides you with more information than you can get. I think we said this at the beginning, than from a flat screen. So what it gives you is a personal connection to the experience that you're having. And that personal connection is emotive, it's scientific, it's very personal, and it's relatable. And so you play the strengths of what volumetric storytelling has to offer. So I guess that would be the second tip. And then I think finally is have the right type of experience. So if it's something that you're really relies on looking and understanding and seeing something that is true to life, by all means, do whatever you can to make it look true to life. Don't make it look, less than, and then expect somebody to have a good experience with it, because there's a break in cognitive load. Like if somebody sees something and the shadows are all wrong or the color is off, it's not believable, and then you've lost them. So especially for marketing, if that's important, then make sure that that's really rock solid, the way it looks, and also the interactions that you're doing in the immersive space have to be right on. So if you start with a game controller,
right,
and you're asking somebody to open a car door by holding a game controller and opening the door, that's another break that is not realistic. And then people will say, okay, I'm really not in a real experience. But if you track their hand, then there's a connection, and they touch the area that the door would be, because you understand that the 3D nature, and then the door opens and they're like, oh, sweet, I'm in this virtual vehicle. Now I'm going to reach over and close the door. And so those are 3 tips that, I think could help.
No, this is fantastic. Wow, this is amazing. And just to summarize, everybody, focus on the story, the power of the story, and the strength of the volumetric storytelling, through emotive and the data feeds that you're going to get. And finally, make it realistic to your use case that you're trying to figure out, right? Because that's what's going to get you the best results, as closest to, the real life execution. So, wow, thank you so much, Elizabeth. This has been fantastic conversation. I learned so much, and I'm sure we're going to talk some more. But for my audience, anybody have more questions for you, how can they reach out?
Okay, so I'm on Twitter at Immersive Stories. So it's IMMERSIV Stories, or through LinkedIn. Just find me on LinkedIn, and I'd love to connect. So I'm just like Elizabeth S. Barron on LinkedIn.
Brilliant.
So thank you very much, Shlomi. It's been great.
Thank you
talking
again
with you.
No, this has been wonderful. There's so much. I think we opened the appetite of many people to try volumetric storytelling for their projects. So thank you again. And for everybody listening or watching, it's been great. We'll see you the next time at the Visual Storytelling Today podcast. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.